Welcome back. I'm Iris Tao in for Steve Lance. With Mike Johnson keeping the gavel as House Speaker, what's the extent of President-elect Trump's influence in Congress and what challenges lie ahead for the narrow GOP majority? Joining me now live is political analyst Whitley Yates. So, Yates, Mike Johnson today did in one ballot what took Republicans 15 to do last time. How surprising was his quick victory, and what does it mean for how Trump's agenda could get carried out?
It was really interesting to see because during the week prior to the vote, all you heard about was the level of dissatisfaction and dissension. But when it came down to the vote, there were only 3 dissenters. And he only needed to honestly change the minds of 2 to be able to remain as Speaker of the House. And what you saw was the difference between a moment and a movement. And so in that moment, they voted against Mike Johnson in less than 15 minutes with a call from Trump. They switched their votes to decide to keep him in a position of power, only leaving 1 dissenter by themselves. And so what you honestly saw was isolated dissent from a few people within the Republican Party going against Speaker Johnson, and not an overall coup or dissatisfaction with his leadership.
So what we saw happen today, like you mentioned, was one phone call by Trump quickly turned things around. Do you expect to see that happen quite often over the next 2 years? Trump just getting on the phone and Republicans getting behind his plan, or is it more complicated than that?
I definitely think that now that we have a speaker, we have the agenda set by Trump. He will be inaugurated. I do believe that there will be more unity than uniformity when it comes to the Republican Party, and people will be in collaboration over competition when it comes to how they're going to move America forward. I do believe this was one of the last hurdles to get over when it comes to intra-party fighting and intra-party issues. Now, the hope and the goal is to remember that the enemies are abroad and not sitting next to you in Congress. So hopefully they can come together, create policies that progress the American people, and honestly fulfill the promises that Trump has placed during his campaign.
But despite a seemingly united conference to elect Johnson today, the House Freedom Caucus, for example, is still demanding spending cuts in exchange for an increase in federal borrowing limit. How do you expect this fight to play out in the coming few months, and will Johnson potentially have to make some concessions?
I definitely think that spending is a #1 issue for the fiscal conservatives within the caucus. And I think that it will continue to be a #1 issue, considering how Bidenflation has really just tormented the United States. And so those fiscal conservatives are going to hold strong to their position and their beliefs that we need to not only just cap government spending, we need to reduce government spending as well as the debt ceiling. So there will and should be continuous conversation about that, specifically how it impacts the U.S. dollar and how it impacts us globally. Do I believe that this is an issue or a topic that Republicans won't be able to find some type of alignment on? Absolutely not. However, we have a very, very, very thin margin when it comes to Republicans and Democrats in Congress, specifically in the House. And so being able to coalesce and build common ground with uncommon congressmen is going to be something that Mike Johnson has to get used to.
And that leads to my next question. Johnson's quick win today doesn't change the fact that House Republicans especially still have a very slim majority. Where could challenges arise in the coming months?
There are probably going to be some challenges, not in what needs to be done to push America forward, but how it's going to be done to push America forward. And I think that you're going to see that the way that members of the Freedom Caucus see the path to making America great again versus a lot of some of the older, more senior members of the Republican Party will differ. But once again, this is not a zero-sum game, meaning that if a member of the caucus gets a win, that it is a loss for you, because it should be a win for the American people altogether. And so what needs to happen is really pushing, once again, unity over uniformity. They don't all have to be the exact same, but working together on a common goal is what's going to be important. I do believe that the border will be a top issue that Republicans will need to be in unison on moving forward to create immigration legislation that keeps America safe and sovereign.
And lastly, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries today did say that he, as Democrats, will work with Republicans when it comes to issues, for example, lowering Americans' cost of living as well as their child care cost. What other areas do you potentially see the two parties coming together to work on in the coming months?
I definitely think working on the border and the immigration crisis in this country is going to be a top issue that Democrats and Republicans both need to come together on, but that's not all. The economy will also be a top issue. How inflation and interest rates impact millions and millions of Americans will also be another issue, as well as Medicaid, healthcare costs, and the cost of pharmaceuticals, which we've been seeing in some of the Senate hearings, has been a topic of conversation. So the border and immigration, as well as making sure that America is safe, healthcare and Medicaid and Medicare will also be top issues where they're going to have to work together.
Well, important work ahead for the new Congress. Whitley Yates, thank you for your insights.
Thank you.